We're going to let you hear some very interesting comments from J.P. Morosi.
I look forward to that.
Network here in just moments. In fact, we'll play them for Aaron Judge's idol, Rich Aurilia. Are you okay if we introduce you that way? Not just Rich Aurilia, Aaron Judge's idol. Good morning. Thanks for coming on. You all right with that, Richie?
I'm totally fine with that, man. I'm 12 years removed from putting a pair of spikes on, so yeah, that's cool by me.
That's got to be pretty cool, though, when the home run king of the American League is like, yeah, forget Bonds. I'm a Rich Aurilia guy.
Well, yeah, usually, on the teams I was on, I was usually third or fourth on that list of players that people watched. I mean, we had Bonds, Kent, JT Snow. You kind of like slid in the fourth slot with those guys. But yeah, man, it's really kind of cool. The first time I heard of that was about 3 years ago. And we've been trying to set up for 3 years with working over the summer with NBC Sports Bay Area. We've been trying to set up meetings when they come in to play Oakland, when the Yankees would come in, and it just never kind of worked out. Either I was out of town or they said no, or whatever it was, So, but I love it, man. The only hard part for me is there's a lot of my friends back in New York, where I grew up, are. I was inundated with texts when that came out, more prevalently this year, and I don't know, man. I don't know what my buddies are going to think if he ends up signing here.
They're going to blame you, Rich.
Yeah, exactly. Well, especially if what I'm thinking, I mean, you tell me if this was true. Look, the Giants pulled Steph Curry in for this Aaron Judge pitch. If I'm them, I'm definitely including you in the pitch. Was there any discussion? Were you involved in the Aaron Judge pitch?
I cannot confirm or deny, but, I've said this before. I mean, if it was on social media, it's got to be true, right? Everything on social media is true.
ain't that the truth? Well, good. That makes me feel good. And then there's this, and you can answer this obviously any way you'd like. But Rich, what can we as fans take from a couple things? Because we're all left to read between the lines right now. Brian Cashman signs an extension with the Yankees yesterday. They rushed to get that news out. A lot of people noticed, thinking, well, if they were about to lose Judge, they wouldn't do it afterward because that would not go over well with Yankees fans. Combine that with Time Magazine today comes out with Aaron Judge as the athlete of the year. Very interesting. It comes out right as the winter meetings get going, and there's all kinds of quotes in there about him predicting 10 years ago that he was going to be on the Giants, and he admits that the Yankees ticked him off preseason. Rich, this feels like it's being scripted. What are we overthinking it to look into this?
I think in the big picture, I think, yeah, it could be, people can overthink it. There's so many things that come into play, but guess what? It's going to come down, the money's going to be there wherever. It's not going to be about the money. It's going to be about where Aaron Judge wants to play, where he wants his family to be, where he wants to raise kids, once he has some children. It's going to come down to that. I mean, listen, it seriously, guys, if it's 300 or 310 million, I mean, what's the difference? Like, seriously.
Right.
So I don't think the money is going to be an issue. I think it's going to be a comfort with where he would be for the next, whatever it is, 7 to 10 years with his family. And two, which team's going to have a commitment to winning every year? And, I think that's really what it comes down to. So everything we hear and we read, it is what it is. I mean, in a storybook ending, yeah, would it be great if he ended up here? I mean, but at the same time, it's really hard to leave a situation like the New York Yankees where you're basically the modern day Derek Jeter if you go back to the Yankees. And that's hard for somebody to turn down. I mean, listen, I don't know this for a fact, but you got to think he had to be a little ticked off where he's having just this absolute monster year, and then he's getting booed in the playoffs. when he's not producing like he did during the season. I mean, that's got to kind of at least rub you the wrong way. But from everything I've read about this young man and the way he goes about his business, he'd be an asset for any club to have.
Yeah, no doubt. And the last person or thing that got booed here, I think, was the crazy crab out in San Francisco. So I'm not sure if we do that out here. You mentioned being able to have a winning team around him. Do you think that Farhan Zaidi and company can build this team into a winner fast enough to really attract him and make him think that this is a place he wants to be?
That's a great question. I look at it. I don't look at just the Judge thing. You got to look around that. And, you've heard their name mentioned in rumors with some other players, some other big free agents. And listen, you guys know this. You watched it. They're not one player away. They're not an Aaron Judge away from contending again. You got two teams in the National League West that have really, Dodgers have dominated for years pretty much, and the Padres are getting better and better every year. Diamondbacks are getting better as the years go by and after their rebuild. So it's going to take more than one player. So there's a lot of holes to fill. Sometimes I just, as a guy who's a more old school player, you wonder sometimes, like, if you go to sign a free agent and, do you come in here thinking you're going to play every day, or you're only going to play against lefties or righties because that's the way they do it here now? I don't know. But can they build a contender? Yeah. Can they win in the next few years? Of course you can, especially when you got a lot of money coming off the payroll and you have a lot of money to spend.
Let's talk money for a second. Rich Aurilia with us, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. What is your take on what appears to be the way these winter meetings are going to go, which is suddenly baseball teams are not scared of paying 40 or more million per year for people well over the age of 35. Everyone's getting paid up until 40 and massive numbers. Are we being too prisoner of the moment and not thinking about the future, team by team?
I don't know, but they sure are throwing money around like it's growing on trees, right? I'm actually, I'm not surprised about like the Verlander deal, just for the fact that, guy basically had 2 years off, had surgery. His surgery probably is kind of behind him, and he just came off one of the best years of his career. And I was watching MLB Network yesterday, and I watched they did the interview with Dusty, and Dusty was like, "Yeah, it hurts losing that guy because, if you knew he was pitching, you can go a bullpen game the day before and a bullpen game the day after because you knew Verlander was going to go 7 or 8 innings. So it's a big loss for them. But the amount of money that guys are signing for, it's a lot. But am I surprised yet? Like what guys have gotten on this market? Not really, because most of them are at the top of the market. The guys that are, DeGrom and Verlander and Turner. To me, Turner is one of the best players in baseball because he's literally a 5-tool player, and there's not many of those guys left around anymore. So I was not surprised by that signing either. But, I think the big pitchers have fallen, except for Rodon. Big position players off the board. But, now, the next thing has to be Judge. And listen, I was at the Warriors game last night, and I went on the pregame with Bonte and Mully and Festus for a little bit, and I didn't know this, and I think it was Mully that brought it up. He goes, "Wouldn't it be ironic that like 30 years ago today, the 6th, is when the Giants signed Barry Bonds to that big contract in 1993?
Oh wow!
Wouldn't it be ironic if they signed Judge tomorrow?" And I was like, "Man, I didn't even think of that or know that or remember that."
Oh.
That'd be pretty ironic, wouldn't it?
That'd be amazing. And you're breaking news to all of us in this room, right? I had no idea that was the case. So that's today.
I just Googled it, December 6th.
30-year anniversary of Bonds?
Yep.
Oh, Judge feels like a guy who would know that.
Well, he was probably born that year, I think.
Seriously, right?
That's actually another good point.
No, I mean, Richie, you talked about the money, and we talk about this contract, and it might be 9 years, and heck, it could even be 10 years. If you were in the management shoes, knowing that the final 2 or 3 years of this deal are probably going to be bad money, does that make you pause at all, or do you realize that the first 6 or 7 up front are so good potentially that you can eat 3 bad on the back end?
Well, let's look at the whole scenario of it, right? So any player, because listen, you have to go through 6 years before you're a free agent, right? So let's say at the youngest, you're probably, for a high-end player, at 27, maybe 28 years old. So if you sign a 10-year deal, that takes you through 38. But what are a player's peak years? Are, it's been proven statistically, most players' peak years are over by age 33, maybe 34 at the best. So you're looking at a 4-year frame where you would have, the ultimate production out of a player, unless he's a freak of nature. And then you have to swallow the last however many years it is. But the one difference now, and this is, I think, a difference maker, especially for National League teams, is there's a designated hitter. You don't have to throw an aging player out in the outfield or out at shortstop. You can put them at a DH spot where they just hit 4 or 5 times a game. They're not on their feet as much. And listen, as an example, the last few years of Albert Pujols' contract with the Angels was probably abysmal for them, right? But he goes back to the Cardinals this year. He DHs most of the time. He ends up hitting 20-plus home runs and gets comeback player of the year at age 42 or whatever he was. So I think that scenario opens up a door now that's different than it was 5 or 6 years ago, where you're signing these guys to long-term deals.
Rich, it is wonderful to have you as this drumbeat continues. Will you do us a favor, though, and just keep your phone line open there?
My phone line's always open, man. I don't know who's calling me, but it's always open.
Well, it might be us. It might be us, and it might be in an hour.
Well, listen, everything I'm sure you guys have read and have watched or heard, people are predicting this is going to be done by tomorrow.
Yep.
So, we'll see. I mean, things I read said Judge is on his way to San Diego today. And then I was like, man, that's a quick turnaround. He's just in Tampa at the football game last night. So, the other thing that came up on our pregame yesterday was they showed a highlight of Judge at the game, and he was talking to Tom Brady. Yeah. I'm like, hey, Tom Brady, Bay Area guy, grew up a Giants fan.
Did you see Brady's tweet? He tweeted out a picture of the two of them standing there, and Brady wrote, "I made my best pitch."
Nice.
There you go. So I mean, listen, there's a lot of people who want that guy here, including me. There's just in the back of your mind, there's always like, I don't believe they're the evil empire, but the evil empire, I always feel like, how are they going to really get outbid for a guy? So it remains to be seen, but it should be an interesting 24 hours at the winter meetings.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Yeah, here we go. Hey, Rich, thanks for doing it, man.
Hey, guys, no problem, man. Have a great day.